We generally assume that the dragons, griffins, and cyclopes of ancient legend were the products of vivid imaginations, stories created out of thin air to populate the dark corners of the maps. But the evidence suggests a different origin. These legends likely began when ancient people stumbled across the physical remains of massive creatures they couldn't identify. At the time, there was no concept of deep time or global extinction. If you found a thigh bone the size of a tree trunk, there was no scientific framework to explain an animal that no longer existed. Lacking a field like paleontology, our ancestors used narrative to bridge the gap. Storytelling became the tool they used to categorize the massive biological anomalies they found in the earth. These myths serve as humanity's first unintentional records of fossil discovery. In ancient Greece, the Cyclops was defined by its most unsettling feature, a single, massive eye centered in its forehead. Today, we know the Greeks were living on land rich with the fossils of prehistoric elephants, like the woolly mammoth and the Dinotherium, animals that had disappeared from the region long before. This elephant skull shows why the Greeks reached their conclusion. Looking at the front of the face, there is an enormous gap instead of two eye sockets. In a living elephant, this is the nasal passage, where the trunk attaches to the skull. An anatomical misunderstanding of an unfamiliar nose turned an extinct herbivore into history's most famous monster. The griffin myth follows a very similar logic. Legends describe it as a hybrid, a lion's body matched with an eagle's beak and wings. Nomads in the Gobi Desert frequently passed ceratopsian fossils, like this Protoceratops. Its heavy, hooked beak on a four-legged frame suggested a mix of bird and mammal. Ancient observers bridged this gap by merging the eagle and lion into a single predator. This pattern explains why dragon myths are found in almost every culture, appearing as massive, scaled predators that dominate the land and sky. Discoveries of flying reptiles like the Quetzalcoatlus provided the scale for these legends. This creature had a wingspan wider than a school bus and a long, spear-like neck. Unearthing such massive skeletons forced early humans to imagine a predator ruling the air as effectively as a lion rules the grass. In the Indus Valley, the unicorn was depicted as a singular horned beast, an image rooted in a reality far more dangerous than a fairy tale. Early humans lived alongside the Elastotherium, a rhinoceros the size of an elephant. This woolly rhino skull shows the base for a massive horn that would have reached the height of a grown man. Centuries of coastal sea monster sightings eventually consolidated into modern legends like the Loch Ness Monster. The anatomy of these legends matches the fossil record of the plesiosaur. It possesses the exact silhouette described in sea serpent stories, a serpentine neck and four heavy paddle-like flippers. When these specific bones washed ashore or were revealed by eroding cliffs, they provided a physical blueprint for stories of monsters dragging ships into the deep. Isolated cultures across the globe arrived at similar monster myths because they were all interpreting the same fossilized evidence left behind in the soil. Ancient storytellers and modern paleontologists were looking at the exact same bones. They simply reached different conclusions based on the context of their time. It is a display of the human brain's urge to connect the dots. When faced with a fragmented and unknown skeleton, the mind builds a narrative to make the pieces whole. These stories are a testament to a relentless drive to classify the unknown. Every dragon or griffin was an attempt to fit prehistoric mysteries into the natural order. Our myths suggest that even before we had the tools of science, we were already looking at the earth, trying to understand the giants that came before us. The creatures we find in our folklore are the long-range echoes of real species, preserved in stone and translated through human memory.